Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the new building. Obviously, you found it. We're here. So I was asked just to tell you a couple things. One, yes, we know that little buzz is there in the sound system, working on those little quirks. In general, we appreciate your patience with the little quirks in the transition. There probably will be something else, because of course there will. That's just how this goes. But appreciate everyone who's been working hard on this. I was also asked to identify that our main exit is the entrance you came in, but in the event of an emergency, there is one that way, and there is one straight down the hall. But really, just for normal use, this should be the entrance and exit to come out. Okay. There are classes for the kids back there. I don't remember which kids are in which room, but the teachers know, so find your teacher and you'll be able to know. And we still have the communion supplies over there to pick that up. If you forgot like me, then you can go grab one of those later. So, okay, that being said, we are in 2 Samuel chapter 2. I'm going to finish up this chapter. We've been talking about a historical transition time, a little bit more dramatic than our transition time here. This is a transition of a king who has died and a succession crisis of who's going to be the next one to rule over Israel. David has put himself forward and Judah has accepted him, but right now it's only the tribe of Judah that has accepted him. And we're about to begin a real war between him and the son of Saul, Ishbosheth, who currently is ruling over the rest of Israel. So we talked about some of the timeline things last week, and now we're going to look at this civil war. So how is it that Abner, and remember that Abner was Saul's commander, and so now he is Ishbosheth's commander. Joab is David's commander. So how do Abner and Joab try to resolve this civil war? Yes, Gary. Yeah, with lots of violence. What is a way to, before the hostilities really get in full swing, that maybe there could be a simpler way to deal with this? Yes, Gary.
They had a dozen men from each side face off against each other.
Yes.
They killed each other and that was it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is basically the David and Goliath type thing. We talked about this before. When David fought Goliath, you send champions out to fight each other, and that's supposed to limit the bloodshed. There's a real danger here that even if you win the war, but you're totally decimated and you've lost a large percentage of your fighting men, that your nation's going to suffer for many years to come. And it leaves you vulnerable to have any outsider come in and easily defeat you. So if there's a simpler way to handle this by letting the champions fight each other, then why don't we just do that? However, they do it a little bit differently than when we saw David versus Goliath. As Kay said, they had 12 champions from each side, and they face off against each other. But unlike with David and Goliath, we don't get much of a conclusive decision or result being reached, because they all end up killing each other, and now we just have 24 dead champions and no clear victor. So this does nothing to stop the civil war from happening or to declare a winner. And so they name this place what translates to the field of sword edges, as a bloody place where this has happened, and outright hostilities break out. What else am I missing here? Okay. So what did you notice about the full-on battle? What happened during that? Okay.
David's side is more successful.
Yeah. So the summary statement that's given is that David ends up winning. that battle. Abner and the men of Israel are beaten before the servants of David. We see the end of how this is going to play out. And it is a fierce battle. There are more casualties, and there's very fierce fighting. What noteworthy event happens during the battle? With Joab and his brothers. Okay, yeah. So they are pursuing, or specifically one of those brothers, Asahel, is pursuing Abner. Of course, being able to kill the commander of the opposing army would be quite a victory. It's going to give you a significant advantage in that fight. And he's obviously a brave man because he is pursuing Abner with great determination. And it says in verse 19, he pursued Abner. As he went, he turned neither to the right hand nor to the left from following Abner. And I want you to remember that this is not them just taking a jog through the neighborhood. Like, this is in the middle of a crazy battle. There's a lot of things that can distract you. Down the sidewalk. This is a real determination. Down. So, what does Abner say to him? Yeah, go fight someone else. I don't want to fight you. I don't want to kill you. He says, turn to the right or to the left, seize one of the young men, take his spoil. We don't need to do this. And he continues, as Asahel is following him, he says, turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? Why doesn't Abner want to kill Asahel? Yeah, Joab's brother, out of respect for Joab. Mark, do you have something to add to that? Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's going to become very obvious here as we get a little farther. But yeah, he doesn't want to get on Joab's bad side. He there's a respect between the generals like that, and he'd rather this battle play out without it getting quite that personal. But Asahel's not going to be dissuaded. And so Abner tries to push him away, turns his spear around and hits him with the butt of the spear. But what happens? Yeah, the butt of the spear. Obviously, he did that with some strength because it went right on through him. So that takes some strength to do that with the blunt end, obviously. But that was not even really intentional on Abner's part. Fell there, died. And I find interesting the end of verse 23 where it says, all who came to the place where Asahel had fallen and died stood still. As in, they were acknowledging the horror of this death. That he had died in kind of a gruesome way. He was a prominent person in the army. And this is brother fighting against brother. Not literally in the Abner being their brother, but I mean as in countrymen, as in people who are supposed to be united. And so it's this event that helps people on both sides realize this war really stinks, that we don't like this and we really don't want this to continue, but it's going to continue for a long time. disadvantageous position, and so this is not a good place to try to pursue. So what does Abner offer? Or what does he call out and say? Okay. Yeah. This is his way of asking for a truce. Let's stop fighting. How much longer does this need to go on? Are we going to fight until everyone's dead? Are we going to you're going to charge up this hill and let us slaughter you? And then are you going to slaughter us later? And then we're just going to have a field of dead bodies? And Joab says in verse 27, as God lives, if you had not spoken, surely the men would not have given up the pursuit of their brothers until the morning, saying, we are brave enough to continue, but we acknowledge your offer of a truce here, and we accept that. And so the trumpet is blown, everyone stops, and they're pursuing Abner and his men no more, and the fighting comes to an end, at least for now. It's going to continue. Yeah, please, Mark. I get the feeling and the impression that there's more than the two of them because of the verse 28, that they stopped and pursued Israel no more, that it's Joab and Abishai who are leading this, and they've got other men with them. It's possible that that's referring to other parts of the battle going on. It can be a little hard to map out exactly what's happening. Either way, though, I agree with the take that Abner's being merciful here because he has the position of power. Typically, the side calling for a truce is not the side that's in a position to swing the momentum their way. Yes, Abner and his army have been losing up to this point, but now they've got the top of this important hill, and David's army, Joab's army, has to come up to fight them. This could be a bloodbath. So there's some mercy here toward Joab and Abishai, who are at the head of this, or maybe the only ones immediately there, and for the rest of their countrymen, that we don't want to continue this fight. So Abner and his men retreat. They cross the Jordan, get over to that Transjordan area where they're trying to regroup and get their support more solidified there. Joab returns, goes back to David, and we learn the outcome of this fight is that Abner had lost 360 men, and David's army had lost 19 men plus Asahel, so 20 men. I don't know if that includes the 12 champions who had been lost before. Either way, you've got 20 or 32, and then 360 on the other side. Clearly, David and his men had won, but we don't have a real answer to the question of who's the next king of Israel. Because Ishbosheth is still ruling over 11 of the tribes. David is still ruling over Judah, a very important tribe. It's not enough for Ishbosheth just to ignore that David has Judah. They're going to be against each other until there's a real resolution, really until one of them is dead. Anything else through the end of chapter 2? Observations, questions? Okay. Yes, and he admits as much in this next chapter, which is interesting. We know that Saul and his house had little respect for God, had been worshiping some of these idols. I mean, Ishbosheth, as Chronicles tells us, was also known as Ishbaal, man of Baal. So if you have in your head that, okay, David might be anointed by Yahweh, but Ishbosheth, is anointed by Baal, and you respect those both, at least so you think, well, then there's a real war to be had here. Who's going to win? Is it the man of Baal or the man of God? It's one or the other. Mark? Yeah, and the people of Gibeon are in an awkward situation, for sure. An awkward relationship with the rest of Israel is really what the way to put it. In that they're part of a nation, kind of, but they don't really belong. They're the interlopers. They're the foreigners who are always among them. So there is that covenant that's protecting them, but they never really fit in. And so there's great difficulty in knowing what their place is in Israel and whether that covenant is going to be honored. Hard to know what Avner's motivation is here, for sure. Okay, chapter 3. Our summary statement of the next couple years. Remember, we know that Ishbosheth reigned for 2 years. So what is described here is basically the summation of the next 2 years, where it says, there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. And David grew stronger and stronger, while the house of Saul became weaker and weaker. And so that's still going to be explained more as we go. These historical books use those summary statements all the time, where they tell you what happened in a really short sense, and then they explain how it came to happen. Just like we saw in the previous battle. We were told David won the battle, and then we're told here's how the battle went. So we know what the end is going to be. Ishbosheth is going to fall, David is going to get stronger, and eventually rule over all of Israel. How does that happen? Well, it's a long war, and it's not going to be simple. I also like that this is worded as the house of Saul rather than just Ishbosheth, because this calls it back to the promise that God made when he told Saul, the kingdom is not going to be passed on to your son. Your house is going to fail. I'm not going to preserve your lineage anymore. I will preserve the lineage of a better man, a better king than you. And so David gets this special promise from God, whereas Saul is told, your line is essentially doomed. So the arc of Samuel has been, and really this is what 1 Samuel was about, the fall of Saul's house and the rise of David's house. And that's beginning to come to a conclusion here, as we'll quickly see. So then we have kind of a strange interjection here in some ways, where verses 2 through 5 give us the names of some of David's wives. We've got 6 wives listed. and 6 sons listed, one from each of them. What is the point of this random bit of family trivia? Yeah, Aaron. Yeah, I think that's an important point, that we saw David taking, we knew of 2 wives before, and there were like political and geographic reasons why he wanted, those wives in particular, building support. Here we see the number is now 6, and we're going to get the 7th back here in a little bit. But yeah, David's house is growing. Not only is he getting stronger, but he has plenty of sons already. Just in these 6 wives, he's got a son from each. So the lineage is strong and ready to take over. However, with that statement, we talk about a lineage. This lineage has forked out, hasn't it? How's this going to go? Like, who's the next king of Israel going to be after David is gone? Right. He's not even here yet, right? There's going to be yet another wife and yet another son. We've got 6 wives and 6 firstborn sons, and a little bit of a question developing of, okay, David's house will be preserved, David's lineage will be preserved, but which one? Because he's building up a lot of lineages right now. There's a lot of lines of David that are developing. That is not a question that's going to be answered in this chapter, but it's something that's meant to get you thinking, and we know it's going to not be any of these, because we know Solomon is what comes next, but there's some drama surrounding this, particularly, if you notice, one of these names is Absalom in verse 3. Absalom will make a bid for the throne. He will try to overthrow his father. Mark.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And the whole drama thing, this is the beginning of the drama that comes later. And Makah is not from Israel. My study was correct. He's the king of Pashur.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was an Israelite.
Right.
So that sheds a lot of light on the possibilities of
Yes.
what's going on. And not only what will happen, but David is thinking logistically. You see that in a little bit. He's thinking much like Solomon did with 1,000 wives. He's thinking wives for political reasons.
Yeah. And the Bible does this, where in the Old Testament, it doesn't try to hide the fact that these people took multiple wives and that there were some even logistical reasons for that, practical reasons why that could benefit them. And there's a time where God kind of seems to overlook that to a degree, yet pretty consistently, we always see that there are problems that develop when there's more than one wife. So, Hagar was the attempt to solve the problem of Sarah not being able to bear a child, and we know there was some drama between Hagar and Sarah, between Ishmael and Isaac. We know drama between Leah and Rachel, drama in David's house here, drama with Solomon's many wives. There's not really any time in the Bible where somebody has multiple wives and it's shown to be this great, productive, wholly good thing. There's always some problems that come with it. And so there's wisdom shown in the fact that God's plan from the beginning was for it to be a man and a woman for life, not a man with a harem of wives that he has assembled for himself, even if he is a king, like David. Okay, now we see some information about Abner's influence growing. What is the significance of Abner's influence growing in the kingdom? Yeah, what's Yes. Yeah, Aaron?
He's also in a position where he finally brings this long war to an end. You know, it's like he's not the king, and so but he is in a lot of he has a lot of authority, a lot of power. Fears him, but he's in a position to kind of figure out a way to kind of bring these sides together.
Yeah. Have y'all ever heard the term used sometimes, kingmaker? You know, describing a very powerful, influential person who is not trying to take that throne for themselves, but arguably has as much or more power than whoever the leader on paper is. He's the kingmaker. He's the one with enough influence to kind of decide who's going to rule next. That's Abner in a lot of ways here. Abner's the kingmaker. We talked last week about how it seemed like Abner was the one moving the pieces, that Ishbosheth did not step forward to say, I will be king. It's Abner who put him up. And, when I read some different commentaries about it, some of them framed that in a very noble light of, well, Abner was looking for the best possible thing to do and decided that Ishbosheth was the next worthy king. And other commentators took it the way that I think we did last week in class of Abner is manipulating the events here. Ishbosheth is somebody who can be controlled. And if last week you thought that was a stretch, this chapter will put that question to rest because it's very clear here that Ishbosheth is not the man in charge. No matter who is being called king, no matter who the figurehead is, Abner is the one who is manipulating the events and who is the person to be feared. So his power is only growing, while Ishbosheth in general is failing and fading. Abner is growing. So we see a few interesting events. One being that Abner takes the somewhat presumptuous step of sleeping with Saul's concubine. That's Rizpah, talked about in verse 7. And he just decides that that's something that he can do. Now, Ishbosheth takes exception to that. You can't just go into my father's concubine. Like, that's not okay. That's not your place to do that. Who do you think you are? That's kind of, the concubine kind of, in a way, is representing the benefits and the perks that Saul had as king. And Abner saying, this is mine now. That's a way of him saying, I'm in charge. And so Ishbosheth says, why have you gone into my father's concubine? And Abner is angry. Now, as we read this, I want you to think, who's in charge here? Abner was very angry, verse 8, over the words of Ishbosheth and said, am I a dog's head of Judah? To this day I keep showing steadfast love to the house of Saul your father, to his brothers and to his friends, and have not given you into the hand of David. And yet you charge me today with a fault concerning a woman. God do so to Abner and more also, if I do not accomplish for David what the Lord has sworn to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah from Dan to Beersheba. And Ishbosheth could not answer Abner another word because he feared him. Do you just get to talk to the king like that? Abner does. Yeah, that's right. Abner talks to the king however he wants to, because Abner is the one to be feared. Abner is the one who's really in charge here. He has spoken very disrespectfully, very aggressively to Ishbosheth. He is telling him to his face, I am going to betray you. That's usually a pretty quick way to get yourself killed, telling the king that. But Ishbosheth's just paralyzed in fear. There's nothing that can be done about this. So, I don't know. Abner certainly seems like the one in charge to me. Mark?
I would say that he realizes that whatever guards were around him were not for him.
Yeah.
They were for Abner. And Abner he's just forced to be reckoned with,
Yeah.
obviously. He's
He does.
It's immense power.
Yeah, that's a good point about the guards that would have been there. That nobody. I mean, Ishbosheth doesn't order it, but also, how confident do you have to be in your control of the situation and the loyalty they have toward you for you to say something like that? No guard steps up to arrest Abner. Lisa?
Someone took someone's concubine that way, it typically meant that they were the person in power, they were taking power
Right.
over what the king had. So I don't think it was so much that Ishbosheth was worried about that. The fact that he had one of Saul's concubines, and the fact that that meant that he was taking his power.
Right. Yeah, it's presumptuous, and it's about power more than it is about just that one concubine. It's about what that means, what that represents. Excuse me. So yeah, this is laden with meaning here for sure. And Abner's doing all of this quite boldly and is not afraid to be caught because again, he's the one in control. Okay? So then, as Aaron mentioned, the other level of significance to this is that it's going to provide us an end to the war. So Ishbosheth is not going to back down from the war. David's not going to back down from the war. It's Abner choosing to switch sides that really makes the long war into a war with an end in sight. Because this looks like it's going to go on for a while. While we do see that David is slowly winning and slowly getting stronger, and Ishbosheth is slowly getting weaker, it's going to take a while to reach a conclusion without Abner switching sides. Remember, it's still David with one tribe fighting against the rest of the tribes. This is not an easy war, even though he's been winning. So Abner... Let's get to the next question here. How is it that David and Abner come to an agreement together? Because, it's one thing to say, I'm going to go switch sides. It's another to actually do it and not get killed. Aaron.
David asks for his wife that was paid for before the
Yeah, okay. So Abner has sent these messengers saying, I want to come and join you. To whom does this land belong? Make your covenant with me. He wants some assurances. He's like, I want to make a covenant with you. I'm ready to play ball. What do you want from me? So that I can have assurances that you're going to accept me and protect me. And David asks for Michal back, the daughter of Saul, who he had married and he had paid for with those 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Why doesn't he have Michal anymore? Why doesn't he have Michal anymore? Why are they separated? Yeah. When David went on the run, Michal stayed behind, and Saul gave her to someone else. While she is still married to David, she's been given to another husband that is, I have a name here, Paltiel, the son of Laish. So, yes, Lita.
At this time, Abner is going and trying to release what has happened. In spite of the state that now your tribe is living as David's tribe is getting more stronger.
Yes.
Abner probably getting to his mind that it's time for truth, it's time for us to get together. You know, it's that happening.
Yeah, Abner, this is about more than just the argument between Abner and Ishbosheth. Abner also sees the way the war is going. And so this is a convenient opportunity, and maybe this is one of the reasons why he was quite so bold about opposing Ishbosheth, is that he's looking for an opportunity for a rift so that he can go join David and get on the winning side. He sees that the tide is turning. So David asks for Michal back. Interestingly, it says that then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth asking for that, and Ishbosheth sends Michal to him. So that's an interesting quirk to this, that Ishbosheth is doing what David has asked for. But Abner is still a part of this, for sure, because her current husband, Paltiel, is following, weeping after her all the way, not wanting her to be taken away. And it's Abner who says, go away. She's not yours anymore. She's going back to David. What turns the tide in Israel to begin supporting David over Ishbosheth? I've kind of half answered this, but... Yeah, a huge part of this is Abner, and this is kind of what we've been talking about, that Ishbosheth losing his star general, and remember, he's more than just a general. He's the man who's manipulating the events and the one who has enough influence and sway to pull these tribes together in support of Ishbosheth. Well, now he's not doing this for Ishbosheth. Now he's doing it for David. And so we see him in verse 17 conferring with the elders of Israel, saying, for some time past you have been seeking David as king over you. Now then bring it about. For the Lord has promised David, saying, by the hand of my servant David I will save my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and from the hand of all their enemies. Abner also spoke to Benjamin, and then Abner went to tell David at Hebron all that Israel and the whole house of Benjamin thought good to do. It's Abner. Abner has really pulled everyone together. Much like he got them all together to support Ishbosheth, he's getting them all together to support David. And surely part of this is also that the war was long and David was slowly gaining ground and winning, and they can see the writing on the wall. So we don't need to make it 100% about one man, but we would be foolish to ignore the fact that Abner has a major role to play in this. And he has taken what could have been an extensively long war going for many years and is really shortening it. Mike?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that this chapter starts off with the concubine issue and something that belongs to Saul. And, because of that relationship, there's a power with it. You see that there's power within having possession of women.
Sure.
And then in the same way, David takes Michael, and there's no, Ishbosheth has, he's like, okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
And so that gives Abner not only this unifying power, but he's also probably able to show, look, David is, he's taken what, Saul had taken away from him, he's taken it back.
Yeah.
And that, you can just see that he has all these talking points on why it just makes pragmatic sense for Israel to be unified, and how it is that David is taking
Yeah.
power.
Yeah, there's a lot of symbolism to those events there. It's about more than just David being reunited with his lost love, though I do believe that he had personal reasons for wanting her back, sure, but it's about more than that too. It's about taking what was from the house of Saul and regaining this power, regaining what Saul had taken from him, that now it is David who is going to reign and rule. Okay, so the people are beginning to follow David. Things are rapidly coming to an end, but it's not quite there yet. We see Abner and David having a feast together with many of their men, and kind of solidifying their covenant that they have together, that David fully accepts Abner. Abner is fully on board with David. We have no reason to believe that either one of them is playing to some ulterior motive. They seem to be sincerely partnering together for this purpose, and that will become important here in just a moment. Now, Joab returns, because he's been out fighting, and what does he do when he returns to find Abner on their side? We do.
You got some strong David about that. And
Yeah. Goes to David and he says, "Are you crazy?" Basically. Maybe he's a little more tactful than that, but not by much. He says, "What have you done? Behold, Abner came to you. Why is it that you have sent him away so that he is gone? So we have the enemy general here in our midst, and you didn't kill him? Why wouldn't you do that?" And he says, "You've accepted him. Don't you know that he's just trying to deceive you so he can see how you go out and come in, see your schedule and routine, and be able to either spy on you or assassinate you, and you're going to lose because you have accepted and trusted this man who is not to be trusted." David is not swayed by this at all. And so Joab, what does Joab decide to do? Take matters into his own hands. Excuse me? Yeah, so he pursues Abner. He pulls him aside for a conversation. How does that conversation go? It was quick. It was pointed, we'll say. Well, yeah, so he murders Abner. Just pulls him aside to talk to him, and then kills him in cold blood. For no reason at all. None of you are allowed to pull me aside to talk today. That's so no. That's what Joab does. He takes this into his own hands against David's wishes. Okay. Oh yes, Matt.
Any significance to stabbing somebody under the fifth rib? It happened twice.
Yeah, it has happened twice. I don't know if there's any particular significance to saying it that way. Anybody have a?
The easiest place to the heart.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyone have another answer for that? I don't. Yeah. Showing he's got him in a vulnerable position, though, that's for sure. And also that this is an assassination, not a duel. He's able to place this knife exactly where he wants it. Maybe that's the significance. Yeah. Well, here's the other half of the question. What role does David play in all this, in this assassination? Mark?
Curses it, essentially.
Yeah.
He has no part.
Yeah.
Says whatever guilt, I'm innocent, whatever guiltiness is on Joab.
Yeah. We are told 3 times in this account, but David knew nothing of it. That David was, like I said, we have no reason to suspect that David was playing, nice with Abner on the front, but then ordering Joab to do this in secret. This is Joab putting himself in this position and presumptuously killing Abner. Yes, Kat.
Well, this was kind of revenge for the murder of his brother.
Yep.
Which was not really murder, but he had killed Joab's brother, so this was
Thanks. Yeah, you're right, okay. We are told that there's another motive behind this. It is not just that Joab was nobly thinking that Abner was going to betray David, but that he's got very personal reasons to want to avenge Asahel's death. Lisa.
interesting that Abishai didn't actually take part in killing Abner, but he is said to have killed him.
Yeah.
So just by association, he
Yeah.
was also considered a murderer.
Maybe he was part of that scheme somehow. His role is not well explained here, but you're right, verse 30 does kind of put him in a position of guilt as well. Okay. Next week, we will briefly talk about Israel's reaction to this and if they understand that David wasn't a part of this. And then we'll go on to chapter 4. Chapter 4 is very short, so I expect we'll be able to go on to chapter 5 as well. Thank you.